In the age of Cnut the Great, England, Denmark, and Norway were bound together in a mighty North Sea empire, a dominion so vast that it seemed no force could unravel it. But when Cnut died in 1035, his great empire trembled like a ship struck by storm. And in that tempest, two brothers rose, one bold but absent, the other near but unwanted. This is the tale of Harold I Harefoot, the son of Cnut, and his first wife Gulfia of Northampton, overshadowed by his half-brother Harthacnut, dismissed as unworthy by some nobles, and remembered more for cunning politics than battlefield glory. Harold's reign has long been painted in dull colors, yet hidden beneath that gray lies a drama of ambition, betrayal, and blood, a story of how a king, half forgotten by history, clawed his way to power and ruled England with a hand both firm and ruthless. When Cnut the Great died in November 1035, the question of succession split the realm. Two sons, two mothers, and two rival factions eyed the throne. Harthacnut, Cnut's son with Queen Emma of Normandy, widow of Thellard the Unready, had the strongest claim. He was recognized as heir in Denmark and Norway, and had the legitimacy of being Emma's son, linking him to the old Anglo-Saxon royal line. But fate was cruel. Harthacnut was trapped across the sea, defending Denmark against the aggressive Norwegian king, Magnus the Good, and the Swedish threat under England Jakob. Harold Harefoot, Cnut's older but less legitimate son, was in England, born of Gulfgifu of Northampton, whose marriage to Cnut was often called a heathen union, and thus not recognized by the church. Harold's claim was disputed. But he had one powerful advantage. He was here. The Witan, the council of English nobles, met in a storm of voices. The northern nobles and Glyphifa's faction backed Harold, fearing rule by a Norman queen and her son. The southern magnates, especially those of Wessex, supported Emma and Harthacnut. At first, a compromise was struck. Harold would act as regent while awaiting Harthacnut's arrival. Emma even kept the royal treasury at Winchester, a symbolic hold over the crown. But in the Game of Thrones, compromise rarely lasts. Harold proved his mother's son. Glyfgifu of Northampton was a shrewd and ruthless political operator, and together they outmaneuvered Emma. Step by step, Harold transformed his role from temporary regent to de facto king. By 1037, with Harthacnut still trapped overseas and Emma's influence waning, Harold had himself declared King of England outright. The Chronicles note that he seized the kingdom against right, but what mattered in the brutal politics of the age was possession, not principle. Harold wore the crown, and that made him king. It was during these years that Harold earned his byname, Harefoot. Some say it was for his swiftness in running and hunting. Others see it as a symbol of his quick, almost fox-like cunning in seizing power. Emma of Normandy, the indomitable widow of two kings, Thellard and Cnut, now found herself betrayed. Harold moved swiftly to push her from power. In 1037, he forced Emma into exile across the Channel in Flanders. Stripped of her treasury and cast from her royal seat at Winchester, the once mighty queen was left to scheme abroad, writing letters and rallying support for Harthacnut. Emma's bitterness toward Harold would echo in later history. In her book, Encomium Ame Reginae, a propagandist text written to glorify herself and her sons, Harold is painted as illegitimate and cruel, a shadowy usurper who had no right to the crown. Much of Harold's dark reputation comes from this source, penned by his enemies. The most infamous act of Harold's reign came early. In 1036, Alfred Theling, the son of Emma and Thellard, and brother to the future Edward the Confessor, attempted to return to England with Norman support. But Harold's men intercepted him. Alfred was captured, brutally blinded, and soon died of his wounds, atrocities that shocked even the rough age of the Vikings. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle places the blame on Harold's faction, particularly on Earl Godwin of Wessex, who delivered Alfred to his death. This murder was more than personal cruelty, it was political calculus. By destroying Alfred, Harold eliminated one rival claimant, but it also cast a shadow of blood across his reign that would never be forgotten. Unlike his father Cnut, Harold Harefoot lacked the majesty of empire and the aura of greatness. His reign was not marked by great battles or sweeping reforms, but by the raw work of survival. Yet Harold was not without ability. He maintained the peace of England despite the bitter rivalries. He managed the realm without plunging it into chaos, even as Harthacnut threatened invasion from across the sea. He gained the support of key nobles in Mercia and Northumbria, whose loyalty was crucial. But Harold never escaped the shadow of illegitimacy. Chroniclers emphasize that his kingship felt fragile, his rule more tolerated than celebrated. He was a king who had taken the crown, not inherited it with honor. In March 1040, at just 23 or 24 years old, Harold Harefoot died suddenly at Oxford. The cause remains unknown. Some say illness, others whisper darker rumors of poison. His death opened the door for Harthacnut, who at last sailed from Denmark to claim England. Harthacnut wasted no time in dishonoring his half-brother's memory. He had Harold's body exhumed, beheaded and cast into a marsh by the Thames. Later it was retrieved and reburied at St. Clement Danes in London. But the insult was clear. Harold Harefoot was to be remembered as a usurper unworthy of royal dignity. Harold Harefoot's reign lasted only 5 years. He left no wife, no heirs, and no enduring dynasty. His memory was darkened by propaganda from Queen Emma and the supporters of Harthacnut and Edward the Confessor. And yet his story deserves to be remembered. For Harold's reign represents the raw truth of medieval kingship. Legitimacy could be questioned, but power rested in presence, action, and cunning. He held England together at a time when rival claimants and foreign threats could have shattered it. His quick rise and sudden death reveal the brutal fragility of power in the twilight of Anglo-Saxon England. History may call him an illegitimate usurper, but Harold Harefoot was also a survivor, a schemer, and for 5 turbulent years, the King of England. So when we speak of Harold I Harefoot, let us not dismiss him as a shadow. He was the son of Cnut, the rival of Emma, the brother of Harthacnut, and the man who ruled England when no one else could. His reign may not glitter like Alfred's or Cnut's, but it burns with a darker flame of ambition, blood, and betrayal. He was the king who should not have been king, and yet was.